Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Portable Gaming. Welcome back to another episode of Farming Simulator 2017. And once again, we are on Upton Farm. So if you remember our last episode, we've got almost everything plowed. We have one more field left to plow, and that is going to be field 32 right down here. We've got the T7 all set up. We're going to get the T7 started on a worker, then we're going to hop in the T6, drive back to field 40, get this sprayed with pellet fert, and then get the T8 going on here with the power harrow. And we are just about closing in on being done prepping all the fields for spring. We've also got a first and in many cases a second coat of fertilizer on everything. In fact, we're going to change the plan a little bit. Looking now, I see that field 40 does have a second coat of fert. So that would tell me the power harrow may have already operated there. If that's the case, then we'll find a new home for the T8. But in the meantime, let's get the T7 going on field 32, and let's get the T6 back to the other side of the map. And here we go. So the T8 is right around the corner here. I started on the T6, made kind of a nice opening shot through the fence there. So you saw in an earlier episode that the weather plugin that we're running, the Denmark weather, does have a pretty short planting season, and it comes much later in the spring than standard UK weather. Right now it's not that big a deal with the number of fields that we have, but later on it could become a lot more difficult when we've got a lot of fields that we need to drill. And when we're trying to work with minimal equipment, I think we have 4 tractors right now. I think 4 to 5 is kind of where I want to stay. I don't want this to turn into a farm with a ton of equipment. This is field 32. It is. I don't want this to turn into a farm with a lot of equipment. Running seasons. They've adjusted it a little bit. The fees for a minute, the fees on the equipment maintenance and repair were, I think, a little bit excessive. So they fixed them a bit, but it still costs money to have equipment, as it should. That's a realistic thing. That's something that you deal with in life. The more equipment you have, the more you have to pay to maintain it, the more fuel it uses. And also, just realistically, you wouldn't necessarily need that much equipment on this map anyway. The equipment requires drivers. It's not something you can just continue to add to a business. It's an operating expense, so I want to be mindful of that, play realistically. So we got the T8 going. We'll run over and hop in the T6, drive to the other side of the map, and take a look at the T8 that has our power harrow on it. I think maybe I pulled it up and parked it at field 40, but I have a feeling it hasn't cultivated field 40 yet. We'll see when we get there, but off the top of my head, I seem to think that we just pulled it up there after we got done with field 9. We did try logging. We cut a log and threw it into that little red heron tipper that we have. We got 3,000 pounds for it. We have 177,000 pounds. Our new plan is we're not going to bale this spring. At least not first cut. Reason being, we just, at the moment, we just don't have the money. We would have to take out a loan, and I don't mind doing that for a single piece of equipment for a harvest, but for us to get into a couple 100,000 pounds of debt before we've even, not really started, I mean, we're definitely started, but for us to get into that not knowing exactly when we'd recover that money. I'm a little bit reluctant to do that. Close the gate. Now, as you see here, we have our little Flegel deck on the back, and we do have our oil change mod pallet. We bought 2 of those. One of them we put in the garage at the store. We're just going to assume, for this gameplay scenario, we're just going to assume that we own that, or we contract with that garage. They let us keep a pallet of oil there. And with the oil change mod installed periodically, the tractors do need to go in for service. And in fact, looking at that last episode when we saw the oil light, it comes on about 45 minutes before. Comes on about 45 minutes before you need to change the oil. If you're running 5-to-1 time compression, then that gives you 9 minutes. And I find 9 minutes is just not enough time. So we do need to break the immersion a little bit, and when we see that oil change warning light come on, I typically, unless it comes on when I'm already in the yard, I typically turn the time compression down to 1-to-1. Not entirely realistic, but it's only a game. So we'll get this to the other side of the map. I'm guessing we need to get the T7 going on field 9. Almost positive. So we'll get that going. And then, let me see, we probably want to, right, the oil change interrupted our plan a little bit. So what we'll do is drop this pallet holder, drop this pallet deck that's on the back of the T6, pick up the spreader. If we get the T8 going, I assume we will. If we get the T8 going, then we'll drop this pallet. I keep calling it a pallet. It's a pallet deck. We'll drop the pallet deck and head back across the map. Throw some FERT on field 34, and then probably park up at field 32, because when the T7 is done, we'll need to throw another coat on there. And I believe that will be it for fertilizing fields for the year. We still need to fertilize grass, and that's a little bit tricky. Let me take a look right now. So these are our grass fields here, these unmarked fields on the southwest side of the map, in the center of the map, south of the map here, and then in the southeast corner is now this unmarked field, field 29, this unmarked field here, and then that's it. We were going to do these 3, but we're not. 33 is a grass field. We already own that. So, you know, to check out your crops, you have to turn grass on, and then go to growth. As of right now, all of our grass fields are showing that they are harvested when they're purple, as they are right now. 29, public field here between the pigs and cows. When they're purple, that indicates they are harvested. They're down to the ground right now, and there's nothing to grow. So when it goes to the first growth stage, there's not a lot to harvest, but I believe you can mow them when they're that new. You can definitely fertilize them. So if we get out with our broadcast spreader and hit them with a second coat of FERT, that'll be 2. That'll take us to 160%. Frame drop right there. That'll take us to 160% of nominal. If we can get a third coat on there, now to get a third coat of FERT, you need to wait until it's in its second growth stage. So first coat when it's harvested, second layer when it's first growth stage, third layer when it is in its second growth stage, and you'll get that 190% bonus. We just don't have time to wait. We need to get that first grass crop harvested and get it into the clamp, get it covered, and get it fermenting so we can make some money from it. And depending on what kind of yield we get, so let me see, we'll hit first growth stage. We'll spray them so they've got a second coat, 160%. I will mow probably 1 or 2 fields, see what kind of yield we get. And I may Let me think how I want to say this. If we've got nice fat rows and we're filling up that little Pottinger loading wagon fairly quickly, I may forego a rake and just load directly into the wagon from the single swath that we're getting out of the Cavernaland mower that we have. If we've got some fairly small swaths, even at 160%, I may buy a rake. Let me see how we did out here. Okay. Looks like we did cultivate. So let's get this put away. The cultivator. Let's get this put away. I'm going to get this out onto the highway and put it on a worker with our course that's going to take it over to the store, which is right next to field 32. So we'll have the T8. All my tractors have the same name, or the same prefix of a name. We'll take this down, put it on a worker, and get it off on its way to the store, which is right next to field 32. So as soon as the T7 is done, then the T8 can take over. And of course in between we will take the T6 back over and spray that second layer of fert on field 32 and field 34. I think what I'll do is I may head over there right now, thinking of other tasks that we have, other things we can do on the map right now. I think maybe by the time we get all this equipment moved around and pick up the broadcast spreader, by the time we get everything moved around, the T7 may be nearly done with field 32. Alright, so we'll put this on a course. Farm north entrance to store, right there. Now, last time I tried this, I forgot to put it on transport, and our T7 was trying to subsoil the tarmac. And that's no good. Okay, so get that. Got that. We also forgot to tell the T7 to stop at its last endpoint, and it drove into the stone wall in the store parking lot around the little decorative pond there. That was no good. Right, so we'll get this deck dropped, and I'm trying to think if we have we don't have there's no shop on the farm included, but we did buy one. There's a little repair shop there. So we'll drop the oil next to that. So we've got it nice and handy. And well, now I'm wondering, because the T8 is going to be due for an oil change soon as well. I may leave that oil on the pallet. Just keep calling it the pallet. I may leave that oil on the pallet deck, because I have a feeling we're going to need to pick it up again fairly soon and take it to another tractor to service. And if it's on the deck, we can pull another tractor into it and use it for the oil change while it's on the deck. Now if I can, there we go. There we go. I saw a strap that was a little bit out of place, and I was curious if it would reset when we put the straps back on. So heading down main entrance to the farm now. You know, I do sort of miss traffic. I mentioned in an earlier episode I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with traffic on FS17. I feel like it's different map makers set it up differently. I feel like the base game maps, it's pretty good, but the base game maps are fairly wide open. You don't have a lot of single lane roads on the base map, so it's not really an issue. I feel like on these smaller roads, narrower roads, I'm playing Oakfield Farm. There's pretty good traffic on there, and that is a Bullet Bill map? I believe it is. Bullet Bill, of course, also made Coldborough Park. And Coldborough Park, for my money, has some of the most challenging traffic on this map. Coldborough Park, traffic will ram you. Now, if I'm mistaken about Bullet Bill, I'll look it up after I'm done recording. If I'm mistaken about Bullet Bill being the author of Coldborough Park, please do let me know in the comments. I'm almost positive he is, but I'm always almost positive before I'm wrong. That's how being wrong works. Right, let's get this dropped off. These mods from Black Panther, which right now we're going to have the odometer, we're going to have the handbrake mod, the oil change mod, the AdBlue mod, and the fuel usage modifier. They're small mods, and they're sort of subtle, but to me they add a lot of realism. Drop that off. And I don't think we're going to need our front loader for anything else at the moment, so I'm going to go ahead and drop that off. This tractor does have a small weight. As long as we don't go crazy on that broadcast spreader, we can drive around no problem. I feel like 2,000 liters is about the limit of what I want to put in it on this tractor. Any more than that, and it does start to get awfully light in the front. It's an 800 kilogram weight, I believe, 850. Now curiosity has the better of me, so I am going to take a look. And I also just remembered we need to put the Nokian tires back on the JCB. Let's take a look at our weight. Sometimes you just want to know something. Sorry, 500 kilogram, 495 kilograms. We went with the smaller one, which means, while we're right here, is there a bigger one? I seem to recall that there was. Select. Mods really make this game. There is. Okay, we have the smaller one. Let's go ahead and get the bigger one while we're here. And while we're, what kind of hours do we have? 7 hours. Well, we can definitely do the repair, but we can't do the weight because it's not a built-in weight. as I thought it was. I mean, I knew that. I was looking at it. Right. We'll be on the other side of the map. We'll be at the store. At a minimum, we'll be at the store to take the T7 off the worker where it's parked right now. So while we're there, we can drop this weight, sell it, and buy the heavier weight. I just need to remember, this is the sort of thing I would forget to do. I just need to remember to drop the broadcast spreader before I do that, so we don't end up stuck in a wheelie. And I think this will be enough to finish field 32 and 34, but we have other grass to do after. So having a little bit more fert in there, I've got a lot more fields to spread fert on. My voice just keeps going. We've got a lot more fields to spread fert on this spring, grass fields. So if we have a little bit extra in there, it won't be sitting till next spring. It won't be rotting the... Oh dear. I seem to do that every time I drive past there. We'll go to 2,000 liters. It's a good round number and it seems to work well. Put the cover on. And use this back entrance. Seems to go a little quicker if we're going to cut through the forest. Now I'm debating, I have to see. Let's see what I can get for it. I imagine only a few thousand pounds. But as we will not need the subsoiler until next spring, or possibly this fall, if we're going to prep fields in the fall, we could need it this fall. But we would not need the... Oh dear. Oh. Just calm down, T6. So we'll get that bigger front weight, I think, would be a great idea at this point. That was terrible. I am going to leave it in, though. I had kind of an incident on ETS2 a couple episodes ago. And I had to do an edit. I mean, I could have done an edit, and I did, and didn't try to hide it. I could have either done an edit, I could have abandoned a delivery, or I could have just stopped recording the series and left the truck parked on a hill in Sweden permanently. Of those three, the edit seemed like the best fix. I really don't want to do any edits, I don't want to do any jump cuts, and I don't want to do any time lapses. When there is fail, it's not that I want you to see it, but the whole point of this is to farm as well as I can and farm as realistically as I can. When I make a mistake, as I did right there, I was driving too fast with an overloaded tractor. That is entirely my fault. You know, as long as I played this game, it surprises me sometimes that I'm not a better driver. But then what? I have to remember how to get back in the tractor. But then I realized that I'm just driving too fast. I'm not driving badly, I'm driving too fast, and that's less about how well I drive than it is about how well I don't want to say control myself, that might be too strong a word, but I want to say discipline myself. You understand what I'm saying. When I drive properly, I drive just fine. It's not that I don't have the ability to drive, it's that I don't have the discipline to drive well all the time. And I found it as I'm doing these recordings, it does sort of keep me honest and keep me focused. And right there, just a few minutes ago, I got in a hurry and I was driving too fast. It's entirely on me. So knowing that I have to leave that in, I feel sort of motivates me to be more focused and to be a better driver. And that's why I want to leave those things in. Right, so selling the subsoiler. I don't think we're going to need it until after we've sold some crops or got some sheep going. And sheep are pretty good for money. As it stands right now, we don't really have enough money to buy a meaningful number of sheep and have any money left over to do anything. So we could buy some sheep right now, and we could take out a loan to buy sheep. We could take out a £500,000 loan and buy 100 sheep and start making, call it 10 to 25,000 pounds a day from wool. Let's go on the low side for our business accounting. Let's go on the low side. Let's say 10,000 pounds a day of wool. At 500,000 pounds, it would take us a year and a half, game time, a year and a half to pay that loan back. Now, in the real world, that's an unbelievable investment. If you can invest £500,000 in something, and in a year and a half you get your £500,000 back, and after that you're in a profit, that is a phenomenal investment. And any financial planner, and we're assuming, for the sake of the argument, we're assuming that it's a sure thing. And in Farm Simulator, there aren't a lot of random events, so it's a pretty sure thing. Problem is, at approximately 3 hours of real time per game day, that would be 150 hours of playing time before we could. Now that's just from the sheep. If we'll hopefully we'll be making money other ways too. But I'm talking about strictly as an investment. You know, you can get into a place where you're pouring money into one thing and then recovering it somewhere else, and you have a net profit. But you'd have a lot more net profit if you got rid of one of the things that is, quote unquote, making you money, because it's not making you any money. So that would be something like, I'm just going to go ahead and take this down to field 34 and get it started right now. I am not, because field 34 doesn't have its second layer on yet. You see what I'm getting at, though? We can, I believe, get to a place where pigs, I never make money with pigs. So we can have pigs on the map, and we can be making money. And we just assume we're making money from everything. But we're not. The pigs are costing us money, but because we're making money from other things, it looks like we're making money from pigs. So what I'm saying is, if we can do the sheep properly when we have some operating capital, perspective, if we can do the sheep properly when we have a little operating capital, we'll make our money back faster because we'll have to take out less of a loan. So I feel like because we couldn't do the sheep right now at a level that would be, I guess, meaningful. Well, this feels a little better in the front end. Because we couldn't do the sheep now in a way that is meaningful, I think we'll hold off on that. But we need to get a Bowser as well. Water Bowser. Those aren't terribly expensive, but it's another expense. So we have a minute. Even if it takes us a few hours of real time to decide, that's only a day in game, and losing a day isn't. We're just going to assume there's no traffic. Set brake. Two in the afternoon, so with 5 to 1, by the time we get T7 done subsoiling, get the T8 started. The T8 may, well, it will definitely finish today. I don't think it's going to finish in the episode. I think it's going to finish off camera. I think it makes sense. Yeah, I think it makes sense to sell the subsoiler now. We're only going to get a few thousand pounds for it, but a few thousand pounds is a few thousand pounds. We won't need it again until, at a minimum, the fall. More likely next spring. The only reason we would need it in the fall would be if we bought new fields, because all of our current fields have been plowed, and they won't need to be plowed again for another 3 seasons, or this fall, 2 seasons. Total of 3 cycles of crops can go through before you need to plow again. So I think we'll go ahead and sell that. I guess I'm looking at it like by next spring, either we'll have some idea of profitability, or we'll really be in trouble. If we're not profitable by next spring, I think we'll have bigger problems than whether or not we're plowing for that additional 10% yield. I think grass is going to save us, and I think, well, grass as chaff, as silage, as money, really. I think that's going to save us, and I think if we can get a clamp at the VGA full, it's going to be a little bit tedious. We're going to need to make some trips back and forth with that small Pottinger loading wagon, but I think that's the key, just to get a little breathing room without going to the bank. I think we're going to need to go to the bank anyway to get our combine harvester. Yep. This last little bit here. So we'll take this back to, we could probably go to field 32 and park it somewhere that has been plowed. I know that's not entirely realistic. Try to stay off of plowed and cultivated and planted fields as much as possible. Well, since we have to go to the store to get the T8 anyway, let's just go to the store in this. And it looks like the T7 is doing all right. Yeah, that way we can leave this on pavement. It's not, we don't have any problems with compaction. We don't have any problems with this sinking into the mud while it's waiting. Haven't seen a lot of rain so far this spring. Some maps and I guess the weather is random, sort of. Sort of randomly generated. It's looking pretty cloudy right now. But I have not seen a lot of rain so far. I don't know if it's rained at all. Maybe one time. I know I have a version of Oakfield going. I guess that's my personal map. A map that I'm not planning on recording. Although it is a great map, but there's so many people recording it right now. And I also, well, I'll circle back to that. I took a look one fall, maybe my second fall, my second season, and in the fall, in the autumn, when I looked at the forecast, it was going to rain it was forecast to rain 8 of the 9 days of fall. So we really had to plan our work very carefully, and we ended up working at night quite a bit. Says the T7 is slipping. I imagine it's caught on a tree. That's very often what that means. So we'll get the T8 started, and we'll go sort out the T7. So we're going to do field work on field 34. Yes. Field 34. Okay. Right, there goes the T8. So we'll run back and get the T7 sorted out, see what they are caught on. It's a tree. It's always a tree. And that's not... I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I know there are some maps that have the collision set really generously, and in some cases they have no collision at all. I know British maps, there's something very British about having telegraph masts and power pylons in the fields. Alright, alright. So we'll go here, and let's get an idea of things. Oh, we're well up on that fence. We're on the other side of that fence. Get it? Perfect. Let's just knock this one out manually. We're right here. I don't think we've got anything else going on at the moment, so let's just do this one manually. So clear this. Drop that. Four-wheel drive on. There we go. So once this is done, we'll drive over to the store, sell the plow, subsoiler, put this on a course back to the north entrance to the farm, hop in the T6, come over to this field, spray it, put the T6 on a course back to the farm. All we need to do is wait for the T8 to be done power harrowing field 32, sorry, field 34. We'll bring it over here, and I will most likely power harrow this field off camera. And when we pick up next episode, it's already 2:45. It'll be probably 1600 by the time we're all done for the day. And at that point, I can just call it a day, both for the recording and for the actual day. And when we start again next time, it will be tomorrow, day 4, and hopefully our grass will have at least started to sprout, and we can get another layer of fertilizer on it. So yeah, this is Farming Simulator. I am amazed. I would never have thought that I would be really such a fan of a game like this, but I really am. I find it very relaxing. I find it very rewarding. I love the challenges. I love the problem solving, and I just like the scenario of it. I like that nobody gets killed, nobody gets hurt. There's no Grand Theft Auto style shenanigans. There's none of the I mean, I like Call of Duty, I like Modern Warfare, I like Medal of Honor a lot. I think Medal of Honor is probably my favorite series. And even though it's weird to say it now because it's old, but Medal of Honor 2K10, I think, may be my all-time favorite shooting game. But there's an intensity to those games that I am not always a fan of. I like things a little quieter. You know, it's just a little bit after 8 a.m. where I am. I've got my Red Bull, I've got my vape, and let me scoot out a little bit here so I'm not plowing the grass headland. I've got my Red Bull, I've got my vape, I've got CNN on, subtitled on the widescreen, and it's just a very chill, very relaxing Saturday morning. And farming just seems very appropriate for a morning like that, and I think that's what I like about it. I like the technology. I like the variety of equipment. Now, I know we're using primarily New Holland on this map. We're going to run a New Holland combine harvester. If we farm this map long enough to get into proper maize harvesting, I'll use a New Holland forage harvester. If we get a telehandler, that's a tough one. The New Holland telehandlers that are available are really just rebranded. They're just skinned. I believe one is a Manitou and one is a can't remember off the top of my head. And I don't like mods that are just a skin on top of another brand, another piece of equipment. So we may go with the New Holland telehandler, but not really a fan. I think we'll stick with that. Either the Manitou or the Claas Scorpion. Don't know if you would see a Claas telehandler on a British map. I mean, on a real British farm, I don't know if you'd see that. But you know my methodology. I figure the equipment dealer, the implement dealer in a small town is going to have 3 or 4 brands of equipment, and that's it. They're not going to have every label available, and they may not have some import labels available, import brands. So for me, I think it just works with immersion to primarily have one brand of equipment on the map, and in this case that's New Holland. Now on my Oakfield map, I'm all John Deere, and this is the first time I've done that. First time I've ever used John Deere equipment. I'm a big New Holland fan. I like Case, big Case fan. Massey Ferguson. I like Claas, but it only seems appropriate. Obviously, Claas, Fendt, and Deutz-Fahr only seem appropriate on German maps, and I have a couple German maps. The thing about German maps, and you'll have to tell me what you think of this comment. This may even be a little a little controversial, but I find that German maps are more, I think how I even want to say this. They seem a lot more technical and a lot less immersive, in that they have a lot of, so the big thing on a German map is the industries. So you'll have things like the fish farm, and you'll have the distillery making whiskey, and you'll have the brewery making beer, and you'll have the soy milk plant making soy milk, and the dairy and the yogurt and a lot of other things. And I guess that's just how German farmers like to farm. There's nothing wrong with it, but it's, to me, at a certain point, it almost seems contrived. Like, how many different things can we think of? And it's all running the same script. 1,000 pounds. All right. What are they new? That was plows. I think they're only 5,000 or 6,000 pounds new, or 7,500. Okay. So I wouldn't say we took a loss. We plowed a bunch of fields with that. I just feel like it made sense to get it off the map. And we get 1,000 pounds back, and that 1,000 pounds may make a difference to us. I would guess it's more likely that we will appreciate having that 1,000 pounds than that we will not have 7,000 pounds to buy a new plow next fall. Put this guy on a worker. Stored to north entrance of the farm, right there. Turn that off. Speed is good. First waypoint, stop when you get there. There she goes. So German maps do seem to have a lot of what is to, I mean, it's fun in a way, but it just seems, I don't know, it's just not necessarily what I'm into. Now, I spend a lot of hours on Hofbergman, and I really like that map, but it did have a lot of, well, just that sort of add-on stuff. And there's another map called Altenstein, or Altenstein. And it really didn't have any of those things, but it's a tiny, tiny little map, I guess, up in the mountains in Germany, and I like that map. It's got, I guess, kind of a German feel to it. It's not a strange map. It's just different. So that's a German map, and I've actually played that map with all old Steyr equipment that I found on a mod site. Really, really beautiful, well-made mods, but old, sort of loud 1980s vintage Steyr tractors. It was good. It was a good map, but it's I guess it was a bit small. There wasn't really T8. Okay. And of course, we need an oil change on the T8, and I was just laughing about the fact that our pallet of oil is all the way on the other side of the map, but we do have another pallet here in the shop garage at the store, so we can, if we run out of time, we can just, if the oil change is really due, if it's critical before field 34 is done, we can pause the course play and bring the T8 over to the store and do an oil change. So Altenstein is a good map. I liked it. It was just it's too small to imagine ever having 100 cows or 200 sheep, and those are, for me, sort of the magic number. You want to have at least 100 cows, and you want to have at least 200 sheep if you're going to make money with them. And it's a tiny map. I think that map in real life, you might have 18 or 20 cows, you might have 60 sheep maximum. So that doesn't really seem like a map where you can, I guess the number we're all chasing is £1,000,000. Or on that map, €1,000,000. And we're going to put this on course play, and course play, the course actually starts just inside the entrance to the store, so I typically start the tractors from this side back a little bit so they don't hop the curb and try anything crazy. So, load a course. Store to farm north. Right, speed's good. First, stop when you get there. And off he goes. All right. I'm trying to think of other German maps that I've played. I can look in my mod folder. I won't do that right now, but I know I've played some German maps. I tried some US maps. They just don't seem as thoughtfully made as the European maps. Never really found one that I got into. Polish maps. Never really got into those. So I think it's primarily been... Oh, and there's a good French map called Agra OC that I like. But it's a little bit... I have to say it's a little bit weird. The way that it's laid out, and you can see that the map maker is challenging you in certain ways, and the way that those challenges are set up on Agra OC is, it's a pretty map. I do like it. I like the look and feel of it, but the way the challenges are configured can be a little tedious, is a word I use a lot. It's definitely challenging, but it's challenging in a tedious way. See how long this guy has left. 20 minutes, so I think I will go ahead and hop out. We're going to call it an episode right there, folks. I'll let the T8 finish up here, drive over and get an oil change. I'll park up all the tractors back at the farm, and when we start tomorrow morning, hopefully we've got grass in growth stage 1. We can do a little fertilizer spreading and then get that mower out and get started on some mowing. Folks, thank you so much for joining the Portable Gamer. Thank you so much for coming to visit us at Upton Farm, and we will see you again next time. Take care now.